Good morning and welcome to the Rangers Review morning briefing for Thursday, the 19th of January. I'm Derek Clark and I'm joined this morning by Joshua Barrie, who's finally feeling his legs and is all over his limbs, all his limbs again after an absolutely Baltic night in Kilmarnock. How are we doing, Joshua?
I'm good, Derek. It wasn't as cold as the Hibs game before Christmas. Anyone that was at that game will remember just how cold it was. But no, good. Looking forward to talking about that. I think there was kind of like all of Beale's performances so far, some really good things, some kind of predictable weaknesses, but ultimately, another domestic win. A lot of this Rangers squad have not made a habit of winning at Rugby Park in recent years. So yeah, I think a lot of positive individual performances. Obviously, still going a goal behind. They seem to not start playing until they have to, come from behind and try and earn a lead.
Yeah, they certainly do. Before we talk all things Rangers, of course, folks, you can see the little ticker below there. We've still got that great offer on the website just now. £2 for 2 months worth of content. It really is cracking value. And also, if you want to subscribe to our YouTube channel, that's totally free as well. And a quick word for our sponsors as well, Seneca Medical Group. You can see the banner on your screen there. They are the #1 hair transplant restoration company in Europe due to its restoration services and innovation techniques. And to date, they've treated over 43,000 hairless sufferers, as they put it. Their mission is a simple one: to change people's lives and restore their lost self-confidence. It's their vision to lead the hair restoration industry to new heights worldwide and offer the most advanced treatments at an affordable rate. Right, let's talk Rangers, Joshua. Last night, another 3 points. Michael Beale continuing that impressive run since taking over as manager, still unbeaten. Had a bit of a scare again last night. It seems to be the norm these days in matches. Kilmarnock bursting out the blocks and taking the lead. Rangers looked all over the place for the opening 5 to 10 minutes. Kilmarnock got their goal, got their noses in front, a header. They got a warning sign just prior to that when John McLaughlin was caught in no man's land, but they sent another corner over and Stokes nodded it into the back of the net. Rangers responded with a good goal of their own. Fantastic spin away from Fashion Sakala, away from Ash Taylor. Cut the ball across for Alfredo Morelos, and it was a good finish from him. Just bobbled just in front of him before he tapped it home. And Rangers came out that, again, it's been much of the story of Michael Beale's tenure so far. A game of two halves. Second half, they dominated proceedings and were fully deserving of the 3 points. Alfredo Morelos got a double. He scored a header getting on the end of a Barisic cross. Before that, Ryan Kent had put Rangers ahead with a great finish with his right foot following a breakaway. And also involved as between those goals was a sending off for Kilmarnock, a second yellow, although I think it's fair to say it could have well been a straight red for Danny Armstrong, who impressed me in the first half, I've got to say, but lost the head with a forearm smash into the face of Borna Barisic. But it wouldn't be Rangers without setting up an edgy final few minutes, as Ryan Kent put it, with a fantastic finish, goal of the night probably, from right big centre half at Kilmarnock, volleying the ball into the back of the net past John McLaughlin. But Rangers held on, and it's a 3-2 win. Joshua, you were there watching it for us. What were your big takeaways from
it? Yeah, you summed it up well there, Derek, because I think it had a lot of the stuff that we've discussed in recent weeks, going behind the goalkeeping position. Rangers looking a little bit vulnerable at points and then making the end of games anxious when they don't need to. The same with the semi-final at the weekend, where you have those opportunities Aberdeen have late on. When John McLaughlin was playing that pass short to Barisic last night, instead of just kicking it up the pitch, and Barisic was playing it onto his left foot rather than his right foot, you could see the anxiety that Michael Beale's referenced recently. But as well as that, and although the performance is still obviously a long way to go, it's much easier to fix things when you're winning. I thought there was a lot of positives and spells. You obviously can see what Rangers are trying to do, which makes a big difference. The big standout for me was Ryan Kent. I thought Morelos had a strong second half. I actually didn't think he'd been too bad in the first half, but Beale in his press conference, if you watch that on our YouTube channel, he certainly did. Wasn't happy with his performance in the first half. Kilmarnock went 2 up top. Derek McInnes said that the Rangers movement in the final third spooked his Killie defence, which is a good line from him.
Yeah,
and I think you saw that quite a lot. Kent getting into those dangerous positions, especially because Kilmarnock had 2 strikers. Barisic got so much room on the left. I don't think his final ball was always great. Morelos kind of drifting towards the left side in the first half, which is where he scores his goal from. And it's actually a really good movement because he hangs back instead of getting sucked into the goal line, and another goal involvement for Sakala. But I thought the main storyline probably was Kent for me, Derek, who still has that infuriating lack of a final ball at times, or the decision making that evades him. I was actually reading an interview with Michael Beale in 2000, and I think it was 17, when he was still at Liverpool under 23s. And the thing he was highlighting then about Kent, saying he can go and play in the Premier League, he'll be a big player, is if he can mature in his decision making. And I think he still is doing that. I think he was doing that towards the end of Beale and Gerrard's time at the club before, and now playing in that similar free role where he has the freedom to move everywhere. It just keeps him unpredictable. And whereas before on the left-hand side, because he was always going to be there, teams knew, okay, we can double up on him because we know he's not going to drift in field. Last night, I don't really know how you kind of try and counteract Rangers' movement because, or the movement of those attackers, because they have freedom. It's hard to predict. So you can't really man mark him. Kilmarnock's right back moved in with Kent at times, but couldn't do that all the time because obviously it leaves a gaping hole in the defence. So I thought that worked well. And Morelos obviously gets 2 goals playing in that orange kit, which kind of reminded me of the hat-trick that he scored in one of Steven Gerrard's, I think it was one of his first games in that League Cup win, where he got the perfect hat-trick away from home. And I thought in the second half he looked a lot sharper. He actually attempted almost 50 passes last night, which just shows you it's a lot of, he was really heavily involved. Sometimes at times probably too much, and Beale again referenced that in his post-match press conference. But yeah, overall for me, I think Kent was a standout. And I mentioned as well for Kamara, who I thought looked a lot better, covering a lot for Barisic, doing a lot of simple things that maybe kind of go under the radar, but I thought it was a better performance from him as well.
Yeah, I thought Kent was good last night. Likewise, Morelos getting 2 goals. That was much more like it from him. I thought he did well, led the line well. Although Robert Binney says, can someone explain why Morelos was given that yellow card? I tweeted last night, just for being Morelos, I think it was. It didn't look anything in that, but booked by Kevin Clancy. I think it was an altercation with Armstrong, but it looked a tad on the harsh side, I've got to say. Jimmy Duff gets in touch. Well, a few comments, Joshua. He says that the keeper problem has to be sorted out ASAP. Graham Corkin, morning, Graham. Another win, if not complete performance. Thoughts on McLaughlin last night? Heart and mouth moments again. Thought he was very dodgy the first opening 10 minutes of the game. Of course, I mentioned there coming for cross balls and not collecting. Did make some decent stops. Good stop. Couple in the first half. Saved well from Kel Lafferty in the second. No chance with Kilmarnock's second goal. But as I see Michael Beale was talking about it in his post-match press conference as well, Joshua, he sort of admitted that they're going to have to bring a goalkeeper in the summer, and they need to make a decision whether John or Robbie McCrory is going to be the number one. The sort of realisation, I think, that Alan McGregor, his time will be up at come the end of the season. What did you make of his comments? Yeah,
he's kind of saying what everyone knows, and I think even him saying that about McLaughlin and McCrory is, you've got to sometimes, I think, take what Beale says with a pinch of salt, because he's protecting his players, which is obviously good man management, and I think it's worked, and it's a reason that he's got all the players on side so early. Robbie McCrory isn't fit at the moment, which is maybe one of the reasons why he's not playing, but we've been over this so many times before, Derek. I think McLaughlin has certain strengths. One of them is meant to be dealing with cross balls. Obviously, that didn't really work last night. Equally, one moment doesn't negate the fact that he has been assured in those situations a lot previously. But it's only natural when Rangers have been so shaky in goals. Whenever something happens, this debate is going to rear its head again. And you wrote a piece last week about the kind of keeper rotation, the way that Gerrard did that with McGregor and McLaughlin. I think it was 6 games each they played before he'd left. domestically at the start of last season. Looked like Beale was going to try and do that. He was asked if he'd continue with that throughout the season, and he kind of didn't dodge the question, but he set it up as he'd want to reply to it, because he'll know internally that if John McLaughlin's going to come in and make mistakes, then that doesn't support his claim of him being a safe pair of hands. So you can just play and he'll get a clean sheet. But equally, again, one performance doesn't negate all the previous relatively assured showings away from home. Saying that last night, you're right, because he got the kind of warning sign just before the corner before where he was caught out, and he seemed to come for the ball, but not actually attack the cross, and obviously was caught out. And then there's a few shaky moments with his feet at the end. So I don't think there's much new to say, Derek. It's not as if either goalkeeper don't have good things about them. They do. But I think you're seeing with the rotation and as well Alan McGregor's age that neither are in a position to be Rangers number one. Beale said previously that he doesn't mind rotating his keeper. I believe the phrase he used last week was he thinks it's a bit old-fashioned to think you can't rotate keepers for certain games. But it's only natural that in the climate of this season and last season, where Rangers goalkeeper has generally cost them more than they've kind of kept out or provided in previous seasons, like Alan McGregor did the season before that one, that you're going to get a reaction like that whenever either goalkeeper concedes a goal.
Yeah. Let's get to a few more comments. This one from Dave Fulton. It says, Sakala gets another assist. He's on fire under Beale. 7 goal contributions in 8 matches. Choo-choo. Great ball. I thought that his work for the Morelos equaliser was fantastic.
Yeah.
I thought he faded in the second half, perhaps understandable. He has played a lot of football. But another decent performance from him, Joshua. And like Michael Beale said, you touched on earlier, thought that the front three were good last night.
Yeah, I think you can see the consistency they're developing together. Sakala just gives you that, again, to kind of repeat a point. He gives you some, well, I was going to say he gives you something unpredictable, but I feel like he's becoming less of an enigma as the weeks go by, Derek, because he's actually becoming quite dependable. I think Rangers are using his strengths and minimising his weaknesses, and at times using them from that right-hand side. He can be really effective from there. We've seen that at points under Gio, but as well, giving him that freedom to attack the box. You know, he was in there with Morelos for a couple of those headers. Obviously, Morelos gets the third goal of the night from that kind of position. But he's starting to be one of the first picks domestically, and it's a good situation for Rangers to be in. Again, how many times have they went to Rugby Park in recent years and not had players in their front three who are going to get you goal contributions? And there's a tendency, I think, sometimes for assists to not really do justice. You know, it's a stat that, as everyone knows, you can pass the ball to someone and they can hit a 40-yard shot, and it's the same as if you were to dribble by 5 players and set on an open goal. But I think if you look at the actual assists that Sakala has laid on last night, it's a really good ball to Morelos. If you look at the one in the Old Firm, where he finds Kent after driving through a few players, he's made a real big contribution. Tillman was obviously rested last night. I thought when he came on, you seen a really. It was like he was enjoying not having to play in the midfield and just a bit more freedom up top. I presume that was slightly influenced as well by the fact that Rangers didn't have a striker to bring off the bench, and Tillman was probably the only kind of back to goal player that, if Morelos was to be injured or they needed to change the game, he could provide them that option. But I thought when you seen when he came on, he was unfortunate with a few moments, and Rangers should have added another. But again, similarly to the weekend, I just don't think they're in a place yet where they're going to kill off these games, and it sets up an early ending, as it did last night inevitably.
Yeah, good point here from John Park. He says Sakala's coming on leaps and bounds under Beale. If he improves on his composure and finishing, he would be a top striker. Of course, Beale was a coach when they identified Sakala from Belgian football, so he has worked with them before, and he certainly is seemingly getting the best out of him at the moment. I like this point from John Dooley. He says, this infuriates me that they don't have players on the posts at corners. Surely a lot of these goals we are losing could be avoided. I've got to say I'm with John in this one, Joshua. The amount of goals that Stephen Davis, when he was sort of hovering around at the post, certainly is surely into the double figures. They've certainly not done that recently. I would be sticking guys on the post at all times.
Would you just go man for man post, do your job? There we are.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. If you disagree, folks, let us know in the comments. Where do you lie on that, Joshua?
Probably not your approach. I mean, I don't know what the kind of positives and negatives. Obviously, if you put someone on the post, you take them out of another area. So there obviously is a reason that teams do it. I've not got a good case of the defence off the top of my head. I think you've seen Aberdeen, every corner they tried against Rangers, I think, was an in-swinger as well. So it's clearly something that teams are still targeting regardless of the goalkeeper that's in there. Maybe Aberdeen thought it was going to be McGregor, so that was just how they prepared their set pieces. Kilmarnock are obviously strong from that area, but I guess it's always disappointing for a team when they concede from a set piece. They almost, I think it was almost equalised through Goldson. He had a good chance at the back post from a header as well from a corner.
Good save.
And you see as well, obviously there is specific attention going into set pieces with Harry Watling. You see him whenever it's offensive set piece or free kick or defensive, he's at the edge of the technical area, kind of shouting out instructions. But I think the second goal, correct me if I'm wrong, Derek, but I think it didn't come directly from a free kick, but it was kind of within that phase of play. I think I could be wrong.
The Rangers goal?
The second Kilmarnock goal. Did the original ball not come forward from a free kick? So I think it's par for the course that, like Beale said at the weekend, if Rangers were going to concede against Aberdeen, it was going to be a set piece or a counter attack. That's how teams often, I guess, playing a bigger team in Scotland will plan their attacks. But if you can be a lot tighter from those two areas defensively, then you make your life a lot easier. But as we keep coming back to, Rangers are not yet in that place.
Yeah. Denzel says, morning, Denzel, at least you get full value for your money. Glued to the game last night from behind my hands until the last second again. That's Rangers at the moment. Michael Beale, you can watch his post-match press conference on our YouTube channel, folks. He does talk about that, but the sort of first 5-10 minutes and the last 5-10 minutes, he doesn't know where it came from, but that's what he's trying to fix at the moment. Interesting point coming in here as well from the Dobbies. He says, morning Bears, loved Kent's interview last night, very upbeat about him signing an extension. This is the interview he gave to Sky afterwards. He was asked about his contract situation. He said, no decisions on my future have been made of yet. I'm concentrating on the remainder of the season. I'm sitting down with the manager and discussing my future. It's not distracting. And then he was asked if it's distracting. Maybe for people discussing it on the outside, it may seem that way, but I'm just concentrating on my game. And I have full trust in the manager to keep backing me to play, and we'll go from there. He did talk about Michael Beale. Says, the manager has been key in my career since I was a young lad. I have full trust in him, and that's reciprocated. He is a quality manager and coach. What do you read into these comments, Joshua? He's going to be discussing his future with Michael Beale. That seems to suggest that he wants an agreement to be reached.
I think Ryan Kent is obviously enjoying playing football again. He doesn't look like he's carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. It's a piece we're going to have on the website this morning, kind of looking at some of the comments Beale made last night, some of the graphics of where he was receiving the ball, with some comparisons. A really interesting comparison in the shot map if you look at where he was shooting from before compared to now. And it's something that Kent also referenced in his the interview that you're alluding to there, Derek, saying that a tweak in his positioning is allowing him to get more shots off. He's always more likely to score from those central areas, I think, than out wide. Obviously, he did score that goal after cutting in onto his right foot in the Old Firm. But that was one of kind of few shots where he's found the far corner with his right foot after attacking down the left. I actually think he's often better shooting on his left foot from central areas, but it was a really good finish last night after kind of making a meal of a chance, a 3v2 chance minutes before. You look at someone like Kent, and there's always the worry when a player's contract is up 6 months down the line that you might have checked out, or they'll be so focused on setting up the rest of their career that they won't be completely in what they are with said club that season. But I think you see with Kent, that's not an issue at all, whether it be the little things like the way he celebrates a goal or his performances, how they've improved. I don't think you've ever been able to question his attitude, even when he's played badly, whether that be shown for the ball, his work off the ball. He always works hard for his team. And I think now Beale is a manager who really understands him. So a point that we've made before, a piece that we've written before about Kent, sometimes in the final thirds, I don't think it's as simple as always just looking at his goals and assists and saying, okay, he's got this, so he must be playing well. Beale said he thought he was excellent in the semi-final at the weekend, and I agree, just constantly finding that space in front of the opposition defence, which is so hard to mark, because if you're putting an extra man in the midfield, either they have to compensate in some way, or Kent gets on the ball free and then he's in a dangerous area to go and attack his marker. And again, the opposition manager McInnes was full of praise for Kent last night, highlighting him as the player in particular that was difficult to deal with. So I think there's a lot to be said for enjoying your football. And Kent looks to be enjoying his football a lot more now under Beale. And that will only help if he is to stay at Ibrox, Derek. I mean, he's 26. I'd imagine he still want to play in the Premier League at some point. But I think he would surely view it as... If he does want to stay, that he can kind of resume where he left off with Beale and Gerrard towards the end of that title-winning season, where he was playing this position just now in the free role, and he was so effective there, have a couple of really good years, and suddenly if he does sign a new contract, Rangers have a real sellable asset in Kent in the future again, if he can just, I think, improve, particularly his decision-making, just those passes when he's through on goal, which I think he still needs a little bit of work on. But yeah, it seems as though if there's any manager that's going to get the best out of him, it's Beale. And they've made no secrets of the fact that they're very close and are both very kind of complimentary of one another.
Yeah, and there was a comment that came in. Denzel makes a point, despite his rehabilitation under Beale, you still have to wonder where he would land if he left Rangers. Best he stays for all concerned. And Mad Dog raises an interesting point. I can see Burnley or Sheffield United picking up Kent for next season in the Premier League down there. Yeah, they're both going great guns in the Championship. I can see them doing well for those two clubs. But as a comment a few moments ago said, I doubt he's going to play for a club that adores him and is big. Yeah. Rangers. When you leave Rangers, he's not going to Liverpool or Man United.
No.
And
I think he probably knows that. I was just remembered there as well, Derek. I was definitely someone who thought at points playing Kent out wide was a good thing, and increasingly I think I've changed my opinion on that, as we all do about a number of things. One of them is he's making less successful dribbles per 90, but if you look at where he's making them, there's a difference in, opposition teams before could know, okay, Kent's going to be out wide and he might be one-on-one against the fullback, but they could always plan for when he's going to be there, how they're going to mark him. I think back to a piece that it was in The Athletic by Jordan Campbell with the game with Livingston, the game before they drew at Ibrox, and there was a detail in there about how they were going to deal with Kent, and I think it was about when a switch of play went over and how their right back, Nicky Devlin, when he was to go and engage and how they were going to double up on him. I just don't think you can do that with Kent at the moment, because sometimes he's getting the ball on the right-hand side, sometimes he is wide left as he was at the start of the second half, sometimes he was central. And for me, and that's been something that, again, before maybe I thought that isolating Kent wide at points, because he can go either way, was really effective. But I think you're seeing when he's closer to goal and making those impacts closer to goal, hopefully over the course of the season, that will prove more effective, because it's just so hard to plan for where he's going to pick up the ball.
Yeah, interesting. Right, let's talk transfers. Cameron Donnelly says, any transfer updates? And the Trying Scotsman says, any news on Cantwell or any signings? According to reports, Cantwell in discussions with Rangers about a move north. David Wagner, the Norwich boss, has confirmed that he is free to talk to other clubs. Rangers, of course, leading the way as far as we believe, and it's about persuading him that Rangers is the best place for him. There's a great interview I did, folks, with a Norwich City podcaster on our YouTube channel. I do urge you to go and check it out. It gives you an idea of the man as well as the footballer as well, and just why it's sort of fallen away for Todd Cantwell in the last few seasons. I've got to say, I'm excited at the prospect of signing this boy. I hope a deal can be done. The other transfer rumour, of course, is Morgan Whittaker of Swansea City. Spent the first half on loan at Plymouth Argyle, where he was the star man in League One. Recalled by his parent club. And Michael Beale was asked about Morgan Whittaker last night in his post-match press conference at weeks after. Russell Martin, of course, formerly of this parish, had a brief loan spell at Rangers. I think many supporters would like to forget much of his time at Rangers because it was dark days for the club, certainly on the field. But he said that Rangers had failed in a bid for Morgan Whittaker. So Michael Beale was asked about this in his post-match press conference, and he says, did he really? I didn't know we had made a bid, but I'll talk about the player. They have recalled him for a reason. I would say that he was one of the better, if not the best player in League One in the first half of the season. And unless they have recalled him to play him, they must have recalled him to move him to a higher level. I think he's a good player, but there is nothing more than that. And that is not what I have been told in-house. Well, what's going on there, Joshua?
Yeah, I know. And Beale, again, you sometimes take it with a pinch of salt, because I think he is a front man, and the way he protects his players, as we were just talking about, maybe that will sometimes lead to kind of deliberate strategies in the media. But he did seem generally surprised at that. And after the kind of cameras went off and he was walking out as well, he did seem surprised. But who knows? I mean, obviously there is interest there. I think with the Cantwell signing, his contract is up in 6 months, so it's a bit of a different situation, because Rangers can obviously, once you've 6 months until your deal expires, you can negotiate with the club, as Kent Morelos can at the moment. So it could be a case that Rangers strike an agreement before agreeing a fee per se to maybe try and bring Cantwell to the club earlier. Morgan Whittaker, we're going to have a scout report on him soon, Derek. I was watching some of him yesterday. Fits the profile of player that Rangers don't have, a left-footed attacker on the right-hand side. Quite impressive goal involvement numbers, 9 goals and 6 assists, or maybe 7 assists in League One so far. And people will maybe say, is that the level Rangers need to recruit from? But obviously, look at someone like Joe Aribo. I think if as Beale's alluding to, Whittaker was kind of top of the pile in that league, then that shouldn't be viewed as a negative. So looks like an interesting player, and you can see, I think, with transfer rumours or speculation, you're always trying to see, well, does he fit what the club would be looking for? Does it make sense in this window? And given the age he's at, 22, given the fact that it looks as though Swansea have recalled him to sell him on, and the type of player is, I think you can see why it would work. But it was interesting to see that Beale and Martin give quite different takes on it in their respective press conferences yesterday.
Yeah, and listen, there's I can see why some supporters are maybe a bit sceptical about trying to target a player that Swansea are looking to sell. Haggis Light says, why are we excited for Whittaker? If Swansea struggling in the Championship, fired them out on loan to a lower league, what do we as European finalists last season see there? Well, you've got to trust Michael Beale and the recruitment staff at Rangers, that they must see a potential within him. I said at a previous show, Plymouth have come up against Bolton a couple of times. He never played. He was recalled at the match a few weeks ago. He came on as a sub down at Plymouth earlier on in the season, but I can't say he caught the eye on that day. But certainly the Plymouth supporters were raving about him and said he was a great player. But doing it for Plymouth isn't exactly doing it for Rangers. So listen, it's interesting to see what happens with regards to that one. Aldo says that if we do sign Cantwell, what position will he play? This is a question that I asked at the Norwich podcaster, and he says he doesn't even know because he played a whole host of positions. He said he likes playing in the number 10 role, the sort of centrally, as opposed to sort of out in the left hand side. Where could you see him playing, Joshua, if he was to sign?
Yeah, we've got a scout report on the website, which one of myself and Derek can stick in the comment section, because it kind of covers this. I think under Beale, you're seeing, rather than players having a set position, maybe they have a role. So you have your 2 kind of deep line defensive players. You have maybe 2 more attack-minded midfielders ahead of that, and two goal scorers. But as we've just discussed with Kent, you could be picking the ball up all over the pitch, as we discussed yesterday with Sakala. He's played largely off the right, but then has made quite an impact off the left with his goal at Dundee United and the red card in the semi-final as well. So I think if you're looking at what strengths Cantwell has, it's covered in the piece. But I don't think he's a winger who you'd want to isolate out wide, which isn't the type of player that Beale wants anyway, so that's fine. But he's better when he's kind of receiving the ball under pressure. And there's an interesting quote from an interview he did, kind of discussing his own game in the piece that Derek's just put in the comment section, which references why he prefers kind of basing his movement off defenders and as opposed to kind of going 1v1, how he views his dribbling technique. Some really interesting detail in there. I think he'd be kind of maybe the third attacker in that midfield, maybe provide some rotation with Tillman. Derek, yeah. I'm sure he could play in the front three as well, but what would he give you? I think he'd be really strong box to box. He's a clever player. I don't think he's, as I say, a wide winger. I think he could play that kind of 8-10 hybrid role under Beale quite successfully. And he's a ball carrier, and Rangers probably don't have enough of those. I know they have Kent and Tillman, but for me, you want to keep Kent higher. You don't want him picking the ball up too much off the centre-backs. So, yeah, he's a player that obviously has so much talent because, as we've discussed previously, of the links that he's had, the fact that he's played in the Premier League and impressed, the fact that he was so good for Norwich in the season they were promoted, and then it's just not worked out for the reasons that are outlined in that video, Derek. But yeah, if you go and read that piece, hopefully it gives you a bit more context as to what his strengths are and maybe where he could fit in under Beale if he were to come up the road.
Yeah, and on the point of Whittaker, John Dooley says, if we've had success with League One players before, Aribo, for instance, I trust Michael Beale's judgment. Yeah, if they can... I have similar success with Morgan Whittaker. If a deal is agreed, then certainly I think the majority of supporters would be pretty satisfied with that. Right, folks, that'll do us there. Thanks to everyone for interacting with the show as ever. There is loads on the website this morning. Lots of reaction from last night's 3-2 win at Rugby Park. Do go check it out. We've got loads coming on later on in the day as well. Just a reminder of that offer, £2 for 2 months worth of content. It's a cracking deal. Head over to rangersreview.co.uk/subscribe for all the details. We'll be back again tomorrow, but until then, enjoy the rest of your Thursday. Bye for now.